Olivia Martinez stared at the red mark on her quiz paper. Another F. She bit her lip and quickly stuffed the paper into her backpack before anyone could see it. Around her, other students were smiling or looking relieved. A few were upset, but probably not as upset as she was. This was her third failed quiz in Dr. Warren's advanced physics class this semester. Remember to review the material on quantum wave functions, Dr. Sam Warren called out as students began to leave. Next week's lab will build on today's concepts. Olivia tried to slip out unnoticed, but Dr. Warren's voice stopped her. Ms. Martinez, could I speak with you for a moment? She froze, then slowly walked to his desk as the other students filed out. The classroom emptied until only the two of them remained. Olivia, Dr. Warren said, his voice gentler now. This is your third quiz below passing grade. I know, she said, looking at the floor. I'm sorry. I'm not looking for an apology. I'm concerned. Your lab work shows real promise, and sometimes your insights and discussion are quite remarkable. But then on paper, he gestured to her backpack where the failed quiz was hidden. I study, Dr. Warren. I really do. But when I see the equations, they just don't connect for me the way they do in the lab. The professor leaned back in his chair. Have you considered that theoretical physics might not be your path? Olivia felt her chest tighten. Please don't say that. Physics is everything to me. I understand it differently. Different how? She hesitated. How could she explain that she didn't see equations when she thought about quantum states? She felt them, like music or currents of water. She had always been this way. Math was a struggle, but in a lab, working with actual systems and equipment, she could almost sense how particles would behave. I can't really explain it, she finally said. Dr. Warren sighed. Olivia, understanding physics means being able to work with the mathematics. That's the language of physics. I know, she said quietly. The lab is open until 10 p.m. today. I'd suggest you spend some extra time on your gravitational wave project. Professor Nichols will be supervising tonight. Olivia nodded and left the room, holding back tears until she reached the hallway. Later that evening, Olivia sat alone in the university lab. It was nearly 9 p.m., and most students had gone home. Dr. Lisa Nichols was in her office across the hall, occasionally glancing through the glass to check on the few remaining students. Olivia's gravitational wave detector project was simple compared to real LIGO equipment, but it was still complex. Students weren't expected to detect actual gravitational waves. That would be impossible with their equipment. The project was meant to teach them about the principles and challenges of such detection. She had connected everything according to the instructions but was getting strange readings. After rechecking all her connections, she sat back and stared at the apparatus in frustration. Why won't you work? She whispered. Olivia closed her eyes and tried to visualize the problem. In her mind, gravity wasn't just a force but a fabric, something that could bend and ripple. She had always imagined it this way, like a sheet that everything sat upon. As she concentrated, she felt that familiar sensation, like she was touching the invisible fabric itself. Without thinking, she mentally pushed against it, the way she might push her hand into a pool of water to create waves. The small metal ball at the center of her detector suddenly shifted. Olivia's eyes flew open. The ball was floating, floating, about an inch above its holder. What the? She leaned forward, and as her concentration broke, the ball dropped back into place with a soft clink. Heart racing, Olivia looked around. No one had seen. Dr. Nichols was still in her office looking at her computer. Had she imagined it? No, the ball had definitely moved. She looked at her detector readings and saw a massive spike that had occurred at exactly that moment. Olivia took a deep breath and tried again. She closed her eyes and focused on that mental image of gravity's fabric. This time, she imagined pinching it, creating a little tent under the metal ball. When she opened her eyes, the ball was hovering again, rotating slowly in midair. "This is impossible," she whispered. Yet there it was, right in front of her, defying one of the fundamental forces of nature. She carefully reached out toward the floating ball. As her finger got close, she felt resistance, like an invisible cushion surrounding the metal sphere. She pushed slightly, and the ball moved away as if it were floating in water. A sound from the hallway broke her concentration, and the ball dropped again. Olivia quickly looked at the detector's display and took a photo of the readings with her phone before they disappeared. She sat there, staring at her hands. What had she done? More importantly, how had she done it? The lab door opened and Olivia jumped. "We're closing up in 10 minutes, Dr. Nichols called in. "Yes, Professor. Just finishing up," Olivia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. After Dr. Nichols left, Olivia quickly packed her things. Her mind was racing. She had somehow created a localized anti-gravity field, something that was theoretically impossible according to conventional physics. On her way back to her dorm, Olivia's phone buzzed. It was a text from her roommate, Zoe. "How'd the quiz go?" Zoe had asked. Olivia stared at the message, then at the night sky above her. The stars seemed different now, more accessible somehow. "Failed it," she typed back. Then added, "But I think I just discovered something amazing." When she reached her dorm room, Zoe was already asleep. Olivia sat at her desk, opened her notebook, and began to write everything she could remember about what had happened in the lab. The equations still didn't make sense to her, but she drew diagrams of what she had felt when manipulating gravity. Outside her window, the moon shone brightly. Olivia looked up at it and wondered if what had happened in the lab was just a fluke or the beginning of something that could change everything. One thing was certain: she needed to get back into that lab as soon as possible. She set her alarm for early morning. For once, she didn't care about her failed quiz. Something much bigger had just happened, and Olivia Martinez was the only person on Earth who knew about it. For the next week, Olivia spent every free moment in the physics lab. She arranged her schedule to be there during the quietest hours, especially late evenings when most students were at dinner or back in their dorms. The lab techs knew her as a serious student who always cleaned up after herself, so they rarely bothered her. Each day, she grew more confident in her strange ability. What had started as barely lifting a small metal ball had progressed to floating. Larger objects, a textbook, a chair, even her backpack. The effect only worked within about 5 feet of where she stood, and maintaining it made her head hurt after a few minutes. But it was real. Olivia knew she should tell someone, but who would believe her? She had no explanation for how she was doing it. The few notes she had taken were more like drawings of what she felt in her mind than proper scientific documentation. A student who couldn't pass basic quantum physics quizzes claiming to break the laws of gravity would be laughed out of the department. On Friday night, Olivia stayed later than usual. The weekend lab monitor, Greg, was known for taking long breaks. Once he left for his usual coffee run, she pushed aside the standard equipment and set up a series of objects of different weights on the workbench. She closed her eyes, found that familiar mental space where gravity felt like fabric, and pushed. When she opened her eyes, all 5 objects, from the paperclip to the heavy physics textbook, were floating at the same height. What the hell? Olivia spun around. Her roommate Zoe stood in the doorway, mouth open in shock, her student ID still in her hand from badging into the lab. The floating objects crashed down as Olivia's concentration broke. "Zoe, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you. You've barely been in our room all week." Zoe stepped closer, staring at the objects on the table. Did those things just... were they floating? Olivia's mind raced for an explanation. "It's a project on magnetic levitation. The objects have metal components and paper doesn't float on magnetic fields," Zoe said, picking up one of the sheets of paper that had been hovering moments before. "And I'm an engineering major, remember? I know what magnetic levitation looks like." She looked directly at Olivia. "What's really going on?" Olivia sank onto a lab stool. Keeping the secret had been exhausting, and Zoe was smart. Maybe she could help make sense of this. "You have to promise not to tell anyone," Olivia said. Zoe nodded, pulling up another stool. "I can manipulate gravity. Or at least, that's what I think I'm doing." Olivia paused, waiting for laughter that didn't come. "It started last week after I failed Dr. Warren's quiz." "Show me," Zoe said simply. Olivia took a deep breath and concentrated on a single pencil. It rose slowly into the air, hovering about 8 inches above the table. Zoe's eyes widened. She waved her hand above and below the pencil, checking for strings or air currents. Finding nothing, she looked at Olivia with new eyes. "How are you doing this?" "I don't know exactly," Olivia admitted. "I sort of feel the gravity and push against it in my mind." Instead of dismissing her, Zoe immediately went into problem-solving mode. "We need to document this properly. Measure the effect, see what affects it, test the boundaries." "We?" Olivia hadn't expected this reaction. "Of course, we. You think I'm going to walk away from the biggest scientific discovery of the century?" Zoe was already pulling out her phone, opening her note-taking app. "Can you lift heavier things? How long can you maintain it? Does distance matter?" For the next 2 hours, they ran tests. Zoe's engineering mindset brought structure to what had been Olivia's random experiments. They discovered that Olivia could lift up to about 50 pounds, that the effect weakened with distance, and that maintaining it caused her increasing fatigue over time. "This breaks everything we know about physics," Zoe said as she reviewed her notes. "Einstein, Newton, their models don't allow for this." "I know," Olivia said quietly. "That's why I haven't told anyone. Who would believe me?" Zoe looked up from her phone. "We need equipment to measure what's happening, real sensors, not just this basic lab stuff." "And where would we get that?" "I'm working on a project with the engineering department. They have all kinds of sensors I could borrow." "We need more data to understand what's happening. Zoe, we have to keep this quiet. If word gets out, I know it would be chaos, but we need help." Zoe tapped her phone thoughtfully. "What about Eric? He's good with data analysis and he can keep a secret." Eric Daniels was a quiet computer science major they knew from the campus tech club. He had helped both of them with programming projects before. "I don't know. Liv, you've discovered something incredible, but you're trying to understand it with Stone Age tools. We need better equipment and someone who can make sense of the data. That's Eric." Reluctantly, Olivia agreed. The next day, they met Eric at his off-campus apartment. After swearing him to secrecy, Olivia demonstrated her ability by floating, his laptop in front of him. Eric's reaction was even more methodical than Zoe's. After his initial shock, he immediately began asking questions about the physical sensations Olivia experienced, the mental process, and the limitations they discovered. "The first thing we need is consistent measurement," he said. "I can write software to analyze whatever data we collect, but we need good sensors." Zoe nodded. "I can get access to the engineering lab's equipment. They have gravimeters, accelerometers, all kinds of tools. I need to understand what's happening inside." "Your brain too," Eric said to Olivia. "The physics department has some basic EEG equipment. Could you check it out for a project?" Over the next 3 weeks, their secret research progressed rapidly. Eric converted a small storage room in the computer science building into their private lab, using his position as a lab assistant to secure the space. Zoe borrowed equipment piece by piece, never enough at once to raise suspicion. Olivia practiced daily, growing stronger and more precise with her ability. The data they collected was extraordinary. When Olivia activated her ability, the gravimeters showed a localized distortion in the gravitational field. The effect wasn't just counteracting gravity, it was actually warping space-time in a small area. "This is beyond anti-gravity," Eric explained one night as they reviewed his analysis. "You're creating a bubble where the normal rules of space-time are altered. It's like you're making a tiny universe with different physical laws." "Is that even possible?" Olivia asked. "According to everything we know?" "No," Eric said. "But the data doesn't lie." As they packed up that evening, Zoe pulled Olivia aside. "We need to tell someone eventually," she said quietly. "This is too big to keep secret forever." Olivia nodded slowly. "I know, but not yet. Not until we understand it better." What none of them noticed was the power usage log on the computer science building's management system, showing unusual spikes during their late-night sessions. Or that Dr. Lisa Nichols had started to take note of the specific equipment that kept disappearing and reappearing in her lab. Dr. Lisa Nichols stood in the doorway of the small storage room, arms crossed. Olivia, Zoe, and Eric froze like deer in headlights. On the table between them, a baseball hovered 6 inches in the air, spinning slowly. "I've been watching the equipment. Logs for 3 weeks," Dr. Nichols said calmly. "Care to explain why advanced gravimetric sensors keep disappearing from my lab?" The baseball dropped with a thud as Olivia's concentration broke. "Dr. Nichols, we can explain," Zoe began, stepping forward. "I certainly hope so." The professor closed the door behind her and locked it. "Because either you three have built some kind of anti-gravity device which would break several laws of physics, or something even more extraordinary is happening." The 3 students exchanged glances. Finally, Olivia spoke up. "It's me. I'm doing it." She took a deep breath. "I can manipulate gravity or space-time. We're still figuring it out." Dr. Nichols raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Olivia nodded and focused on the fallen baseball. It slowly rose into the air again. She made it move in a figure 8 pattern before gently setting it down. The professor's scientific skepticism battled with the evidence before her eyes. She moved forward and passed her hand above and below the ball while it was floating, checking for tricks. "How long have you been able to do this?" she asked, her voice now barely above a whisper. "About a month," Olivia replied. "It started in the lab after I failed Dr. Warren's quiz." Dr. Nichols sat down heavily on an empty chair. "This shouldn't be possible." "We know," Eric said, opening his laptop. "But we've collected data. Whatever Olivia is doing, it creates a localized distortion in space-time. Look at these readings." The professor leaned forward, examining Eric's screen. Her expression changed from skepticism to wonder as she scrolled through the data. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. "If these readings are accurate—" "They are," Zoe insisted. "We've verified them multiple ways." "Then Miss Martinez isn't just counteracting gravity. She's actually manipulating the fabric of space-time itself." Dr. Nichols looked up at Olivia with new eyes. "Do you understand what this means?" Olivia nodded slowly. "It means that everything we know about physics is incomplete." "It means more than that," Dr. Nichols said. "It means Einstein wasn't wrong, but he wasn't seeing the whole picture either. There's another layer to reality that we haven't accounted for." She paused. "And you somehow have direct access to it." The group fell silent as the implications sank in. "What happens now?" Olivia finally asked. Dr. Nichols thought for a moment. "I need to bring Dr. Warren into this. He specializes in theoretical physics. And we need proper lab space, not a storage closet." "No," Olivia said quickly. "Dr. Warren already thinks I'm a failure at physics. He'll never believe this." "Olivia," Dr. Nichols said gently, "Sam may be traditional in his teaching methods, but he's a brilliant physicist, and he'll believe what he sees with his own eyes." 2 days later, they met in Dr. Nichols's private research lab. Dr. Warren watched in stunned silence as Olivia demonstrated her ability, floating various objects and even creating a small field that caused water to form a perfect sphere in midair. "Impossible," he whispered, but his eyes showed he knew it was real. For the next several hours, the 2 professors asked questions and ran tests that the students hadn't thought of. Dr. Warren was particularly interested in Olivia's mental process. "You say you visualize gravity as a fabric?" he asked. "Like a sheet?" "Yes," Olivia explained. "I can feel it in my mind like I'm touching it with invisible hands. When I push or pull on it, things move." Dr. Warren nodded slowly. "That actually aligns with how we visualize space-time in theoretical models, but no one's ever been able to interact with it directly. Could this be some form of quantum entanglement between her consciousness and the fundamental fields?" Dr. Nichols suggested. "Possibly, or perhaps—" Dr. Warren trailed off, lost in thought. By evening, the professors had reached a decision. "We need to set up a proper research program," Dr. Nichols said, "with controls, documentation, everything, by the book." "What about keeping it secret?" Zoe asked. "For now, yes," Dr. Warren agreed. "But eventually, this will need to be shared with the scientific community." Over the following weeks, their research accelerated. With the professor's help, they gained access to better equipment and secured a dedicated lab space. Olivia practiced daily, growing stronger and more precise. Eric's data analysis revealed something unexpected. The energy required for Olivia's ability didn't seem to come from her body. When she created a gravitational distortion, the energy appeared from nowhere, violating the conservation of energy, another fundamental law of physics broken. It's like she's channeling energy from somewhere else, Eric explained during one session. Another dimension, perhaps, Dr. Warren mused. Theoretical physics has proposed extra dimensions beyond our four-dimensional spacetime, but we've never had evidence for them. As the research progressed, they discovered something else. When Olivia was especially focused, sensitive cameras picked up a faint blue glow around her hands, light in a spectrum just barely visible to human eyes. Whatever she's doing, it has a direct physical manifestation, Dr. Nichols noted. One afternoon, Dr. Warren brought a sealed envelope to the lab. I've been corresponding with a colleague at the National Science Foundation, he explained. Without revealing what we've discovered, I asked some theoretical questions about gravity manipulation. You told someone? Olivia asked, alarmed. No, details, just hypotheticals. But his response was interesting. Dr. Warren opened the envelope. He said that if anyone ever did find a way to manipulate gravity directly, it would have implications for everything from energy production to space travel. Space travel? Zoe perked up. Think about it, Dr. Warren said. The biggest challenge in space exploration is escaping Earth's gravity well. What if we could create a bubble where gravity's effects are reduced or redirected? The implications hit them all at once. Cheaper launches, faster travel between planets, protection from gravitational forces during acceleration, possibly even artificial gravity on long space journeys. There's more, Dr. Nichols added. Energy production, medical applications, construction. The list is endless. And weapons, Eric said quietly. Let's not pretend military applications won't be the first thing some people think of. The room grew silent as they considered the full weight of what they had discovered. This isn't just about physics anymore, Olivia said. It's about changing everything. She looked around at the group. Are we ready for that responsibility? Before anyone could answer, there was a knock at the lab door. The university dean stood outside with two men in dark suits. Dr. Nichols, Dr. Warren, the dean said nervously. These gentlemen are from the Department of Defense. They'd like to discuss the unusual energy readings coming from this lab. Dr. Warren and Dr. Nichols exchanged worried glances. The secret was out. The university conference room felt too small for the number of people crowded inside. Olivia sat at the center of one side of the long table, with Zoe and Eric beside her. Across from them sat the two government men who had introduced themselves as Agent Paul Miller and Dr. Alan Foster from the Department of Defense. Dr. Warren and Dr. Nichols sat at the ends of the table, while the university dean hovered nervously near the door. Let me make sure I understand correctly, Agent Miller said, his voice carefully neutral. Ms. Martinez has demonstrated an ability to manipulate gravitational fields using only her mind. That's an oversimplification, Dr. Warren replied, but essentially correct. Dr. Foster leaned forward. And you've verified this is not a hoax or misinterpretation of data. Multiple times, with increasingly sophisticated equipment, Dr. Nichols confirmed. The effect is real. The two government representatives exchanged glances. We'd like to see a demonstration, Agent Miller said. All eyes turned to Olivia. She had been quiet throughout the meeting, overwhelmed by how quickly events were unfolding. Now she nodded slowly and focused on the water pitcher in the center of the table. The pitcher rose smoothly into the air, water and all. Then, with careful concentration, Olivia separated the water from the pitcher. The liquid formed a perfect sphere that hovered beside the empty container. With a gentle mental push, she made both objects rotate slowly around each other before recombining them and setting the full pitcher back on the table. Dr. Foster's professional composure cracked. My God, he whispered. Agent Miller's face remained impassive, but his voice had a new edge of urgency. This discovery has significant national security implications. We'll need to move this research to a secure facility immediately. Wait just a minute, Dr. Warren said sharply. This is a scientific discovery, not a military asset. It's both, Agent Miller countered. The applications for defense alone, no. Everyone turned to look at Olivia, surprised by her firm tone. I won't be taken to some secret lab. Ms. Martinez, Agent Miller began, his voice softening. You must understand the significance. I understand perfectly, Olivia interrupted. She stood up, finding confidence she didn't know she had. This is my ability, not yours, not the government's, not the university's, and I won't use it to make weapons. The silence that followed was tense. Agent Miller's face hardened. There are protocols for discoveries with national security implications, he said. We have the authority. To what? Zoe jumped in. Force her? Lock her up? How would that look in the press? Government imprisons college student for scientific discovery? Eric, always the quiet one, spoke up. We've already secured the research data. Copies exist that would be released automatically if anything happened to us. It was a bluff, but the government men couldn't know that. Dr. Foster raised his hands in a calming gesture. No one is talking about imprisonment. We're simply saying this research needs proper security and resources, which we can provide here at the university, Dr. Nichols countered, with appropriate confidentiality agreements. The dean, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Perhaps a compromise, a joint research program between the university and your department, with Ms. Martinez's consent, of course. The negotiation continued for hours. By evening, they had reached an uneasy agreement. The research would remain at the university, but with enhanced security and funding from the Department of Defense. Olivia would continue as the primary subject, but would have final say over how her ability was used. A small team of government scientists would join their group. As they left the meeting, Dr. Warren pulled Olivia aside. Are you okay with this arrangement? He asked quietly. Olivia nodded. It's better than being taken away, but I don't trust them completely. Neither do I, the professor admitted, but keeping the research here gives us some control. News of the discovery spread through the university, despite efforts to keep it quiet. Students whispered about the mysterious government agents seen on campus and the suddenly restricted access to certain physics labs. Rumors ranged from alien technology to experimental weapons testing. Olivia found herself both famous and isolated. Some students wanted to be friends with the suddenly important physics undergrad, while others avoided her, intimidated by the security personnel who now shadowed her movements on campus. 3 weeks after the government's arrival, Olivia sat in the newly equipped lab with the expanded research team. The room was filled with advanced equipment that hadn't been there before, much of it bearing military insignia. Dr. Foster was explaining a new series of tests they wanted to run. We believe your ability might extend beyond simple gravitational manipulation, he said, showing diagrams on a screen. If you're actually affecting space-time itself, there could be implications for other fundamental forces. Electromagnetic, strong nuclear, even weak nuclear forces. Olivia frowned. What exactly are you suggesting? We want to see if you can affect other types of fields, not just gravity. Over the next few days, they ran test after test. To everyone's surprise, Olivia showed limited ability to affect electromagnetic fields as well. Not as strongly as gravity, but enough to cause instruments to register changes. It's all connected, Dr. Warren theorized during one session. Einstein spent his later years searching for a unified field theory, a single framework that would explain all fundamental forces. What if Olivia is somehow tapping into that unified field? The research continued at an intense pace. Government scientists brought in new equipment daily. Olivia practiced for hours, expanding her control and precision. She could now maintain larger fields for longer periods with less mental fatigue. One evening, as most of the team was leaving, Agent Miller approached Olivia. There's someone who would like to meet you, he said. Someone from NASA. The next day, a woman named Dr. Caroline Bennett arrived. She was the director of advanced propulsion research at NASA, and her interest was immediately clear. "The applications for space travel are enormous," she explained enthusiastically. "If we could create even small gravitational distortions around a spacecraft, we could revolutionize how we move through space." For the first time since the government became involved, Olivia felt genuine excitement. This was something she could get behind, using her ability to help humanity reach the stars, not develop new weapons. As Dr. Bennett shared concepts for gravity-assisted propulsion systems, Olivia noticed Zoe watching with intense interest. Her roommate had always been passionate about space exploration. "We could work together on this," Olivia suggested to Zoe later. "Your engineering skills and my whatever this is." Zoe's eyes lit up. "A new kind of propulsion system designed specifically around your abilities? That could work." Eric joined their conversation. "The computational models would be complex, but I think I could help simulate how it would function in space." For the first time in weeks, the three friends felt united again in purpose. The government oversight was still uncomfortable, the attention still unwanted, but now they had a goal that aligned with their own dreams. That night, as Olivia lay in bed looking out her dorm window at the stars, she thought about how far she had come from failing physics quizzes. The path ahead was uncertain and filled with both promise and danger. But one thing was clear: humanity's understanding of the universe would never be the same. 18 months had passed since Olivia first made a metal ball float in the university physics lab. Now she stood before a wall of windows overlooking the massive hangar where the first gravity-drive spacecraft was nearing completion. "Hard to believe this all started with a failed quiz," Zoe said, joining her at the window. Olivia smiled. "Dr. Warren still reminds me that I never retook that test." "You rewrote the textbook instead," Eric added as he approached, carrying 3 cups of coffee. Literally. The three friends watched the bustling activity below. Hundreds of engineers and technicians swarmed around the sleek vessel named the Horizon. Unlike traditional spacecraft, it had no massive fuel tanks or rocket engines. Instead, its smooth hull housed the revolutionary propulsion system they had helped create. After the initial government interest, the project had grown beyond anyone's expectations. The president himself had announced the formation of the Gravity Propulsion Initiative, a joint program between NASA, the Department of Energy, and leading universities. What had begun in a small university lab was now a massive facility in the desert, with over 1,000 people working toward a single goal: humanity's first gravity-driven spaceship. "Dr. Bennett wants to see us in the main lab," Eric said, checking his phone. Something about the final calibrations. The main laboratory was the heart of the facility. Here, Olivia had spent countless hours working with scientists and engineers to understand and harness her ability. Large machines lined the walls designed to measure and amplify the space-time distortions she created. Dr. Caroline Bennett greeted them as they entered. "Just in time, we're ready for the final test of the core." The gravity drive core was based on Olivia's ability but translated into technology. For months, they had recorded the exact energy patterns her brain produced when manipulating gravity. Then, using advanced quantum computers and newly developed materials, they had built a device that could reproduce those patterns artificially. "Will it work without me there?" Olivia asked, the question that had worried her for months. "That's what today's test will tell us," Dr. Bennett replied. "If this works, the ship won't need you on board to function." Part of Olivia felt relief. She had never planned to be an astronaut. Another part felt strange, like a parent watching a child leave home. Her ability, once so personal, had been translated into something independent of her. They moved to the control room where Dr. Warren and Dr. Nichols were already waiting. Both professors had joined the project full-time, their academic careers transformed by their association with the discovery. "Ready for the moment of truth?" Dr. Warren asked with a smile. The team took their positions. Engineers called out system checks as the gravity drive core powered up. On large screens, they could watch as energy readings climbed steadily. "Initiating field generation," announced the lead engineer. Everyone held their breath. If this worked, it meant the technology could function independently. If not, they would need to reconsider their approach, possibly requiring Olivia to be physically present on any mission. The screens flickered, then showed a stable gravitational distortion forming around the test object, a 1-ton steel cube, in a sealed chamber. "Field is stable," reported a technician. 1.2 meters diameter, 97% efficiency. The control room erupted in cheers. The cube was now effectively weightless within the field, proving the technology worked without Olivia's direct influence. "We did it," Dr. Bennett said, turning to the group with a broad smile. "This changes everything." Over the following weeks, the team worked to integrate the core into the Horizon. The ship would be the first to use gravity manipulation for both propulsion and internal artificial gravity, making long-duration spaceflight more practical and comfortable. One evening, as final preparations were being made for the ship's first test flight, Olivia received a surprising visitor. Agent Miller, who had been less present as the project became more public, requested a private meeting. "I owe you an apology, Ms. Martinez," he said as they walked along the perimeter of the facility. "When we first met, I saw your ability as a potential weapon. I was wrong." Olivia studied him, surprised by his candor. "The potential is still there," she pointed out. "This technology could be weaponized." "Yes, it could," he admitted. "But that's true of most breakthrough technologies. The difference is in how we choose to use them." He paused. "The President has signed an international treaty prohibiting weaponization of gravity manipulation technology. It wasn't perfect protection, Olivia knew, but it was something. The day of the test launch arrived with clear skies and light winds. Perfect conditions. The Horizon sat on a simple launch pad. No rocket boosters or massive fuel tanks needed. Its power came from the core inside, which would create a directional gravitational field, essentially letting the ship fall upward. Olivia, Zoe, and Eric watched from the VIP observation deck along with Dr. Warren, Dr. Nichols, and various government officials. The countdown proceeded smoothly. 3, 2, 1. Initiation. Unlike traditional rockets with their fire and thunder, the Horizon rose silently, surrounded by a barely visible shimmer of distorted air. It accelerated upward at an increasing pace, soon becoming just a glint in the sky. "Trajectory is nominal," announced Mission Control. "Gravity field is stable. The Horizon is performing exactly as designed." Cheers and applause broke out again, but Olivia remained quiet, watching the sky where the ship had disappeared. Zoe put a hand on her shoulder. "You've changed the world, Liv." "We all did," Olivia replied. "You, me, Eric, the professors, everyone, here." Later that evening, as the successful test was being celebrated across the facility, Olivia slipped away to a quiet spot outside. She looked up at the stars, thinking about how much closer they now seemed. Dr. Warren found her there. "Quite a journey from that failed quiz, wouldn't you say?" Olivia smiled. "I still don't understand the math the way you want me to." "Perhaps not," he conceded, "but you understood something more fundamental. Sometimes intuition leads where formulas haven't yet reached." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "What's next for you?" he finally asked. "You could write your own ticket anywhere in the world now." Olivia had been thinking about this question for weeks. The gravity drive was moving forward without requiring her direct involvement. Her research had been published, her name forever linked to a revolution in physics. She could join any research institution, command a fortune in the private sector, or simply retire on the patents she now held. "I think," she said slowly, "I want to go back to school." Dr. Warren looked surprised. "School? There are other students, out there like me, people who understand things differently, who might see what others miss. I want to find them, teach them." The professor smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." As the stars brightened above them, Olivia thought about the strange path that had brought her here. One failed test had opened doors to the universe, and now those doors would remain open, not just for her, but for all of humanity. In the distance, tracking stations monitored the horizon as it pushed the boundaries of near-Earth space, humanity's first step into a new age of exploration. And it had all begun because a student who couldn't pass a physics quiz had found a different way to understand the universe.